Well, we'll see if the president touches on the debt in his speech in the next hour. By the way, that was tape that we showed of a previous speech. He hasn't started speaking, as Grady just mentioned. Well, neither presidential candidate, meanwhile, has made the economy a big focus, or at least the debt, a big focus of their campaign. Let's bring in former Congressional Budget Office Director Doug Holtz-Eakin to discuss all this. Doug, I know as the former CBO director, you look at some of these numbers, particularly the deficit and the debt, and I'm sure your head is exploding. But let me just print out and a hat tip to Gary Kaltbaum, because he pointed this out to us all. The August numbers, we just got the August numbers for the deficit. It was $380 billion in August. And in the same month, the total revenues came in at only $307 billion. In other words, we are spending more than twice as much as we're taking in. Try doing that at home, by the way. What is going to happen as a result of doing that?
Well, it's already happening, David. It just happens in a little bit each year, not enough for people to notice. But if you run big deficits for long periods of time, you undercut future standards of living. And we've run big deficits for a long time. And growth in the 21st century is a full percentage point lower than it was for GDP per capita in the 20th century. Big deficits slow the growth of the economy. They hurt the growth in the standard of living. And if you layer on top of that other bad policies, you get what we've had recently. You know, for those people who work full-time, full year, men or women, their median incomes are lower now than they were in 2020.
Absolutely.
And that is not that's just not okay.
And you know, all of these election year payouts, I mean, that's what's causing this current rush to spend as much money as the Harris-Biden administration possibly can. But it's going to get worse. Particularly if Kamala Harris has her plans recognized. And you wrote about this, particularly in housing, this $25,000 gift. And now, I don't know if you just heard, but AOC has come out with a master plan. That is to completely socialize our housing system, or at least our rental system, to the tune of $600 billion. What is going to happen as a result of that? I mean, that is essentially socializing a good chunk of our economy.
Yeah, no question about it. I wrote about this morning. If you look at the features of that plan, it doesn't do anything that we don't already have the capability of doing, except throw a pile of taxpayer money in it and a lot of federal control over local decisions. And the end result, I'll point out, is you get 1.25 million units over the next 10 years. That's not very many. They cost $480,000 each, almost $500,000 per unit. And we raised the home ownership capability by about 1/10 of a percentage point. I mean, so this is a way to spend a lot of money and accomplish very, very little. And this is what we've been doing at the federal level.
Right.
It is time to focus the government on the things that can do and needs to do well, and stop running big deficits.
Well, I don't think there's much that it does well, and that's part of the problem. And that's why Donald Trump says he's going to bring Elon Musk into the picture to cut the waste and fraud in government. Do you think that would do any good?
Obviously, it's a good idea to cut the waste and fraud, but the reality is that the big money is in the entitlements. It's the vast majority of federal spending, 50 out of 85 trillion in the next 10 years. And the money there is Social Security and Medicare. So for us to get our budget really under control, Social Security and Medicare have to grow more slowly. Not cut, not get eliminated, you know, all the draconian things people threaten with. Just get them to grow more slowly, something like the pace of the economy, and we can solve our problems in a straightforward manner.
All right. Now Donald Trump is focusing on these tax cuts. He's got a lot of tax cuts in his quiver. He wants, of course, to end both of them now want to, because Kamala stole his plan. Both want to end taxes on tips. Now he wants to end taxes on overtime pay. And a lot of people are scoffing, and of course you still hear the rhetoric from Kamala campaign saying that the last tax cuts actually cost $2 trillion. That is not true. We went back and looked at the 5 years after the 2017 tax cuts went in. We actually gained revenue. There was a 47% increase in those 5 years in tax revenues coming in as a result of the extra economic activity that took place. That added up to $1.58 trillion extra dollars that came in after the tax code, the Trump tax code came in. So it's not necessarily true that tax rate cuts will cost, right?
So I think the key here is, first of all, I just point out that these tax cuts were so horrible that they want to hold on to the vast majority of them for people making under $400,000. So they can't have been that horrible. The second is 2017 was a tax reform. It was the first major tax reform since 1986, and we desperately needed a tax reform. And it was enormously successful in keeping headquarters in America and bringing investment dollars back to America and driving the growth in real wages. And that's what we should be thinking about for next year. It's not about just having tax cuts. It's about having a pro-growth strategy.
That's a great point.
And given the debt problem, let's bring in the spending side and get a pro-growth strategy that solves some of our debt problems. That would be the ideal approach.
Doug Holtz-Eakin. Good to see you, Doug. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David.